They taught you how to memorize, how to obey, how to chase success, but they never taught you how to think, not clearly, not calmly, not independently. Most people walk through life reacting, not reflecting, drowning in opinions, expectations, and noise, while never learning how to hear the only voice that truly matters, their own. But here's the truth no one told you. Thinking is a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained. In this video, we're going to uncover 10 ancient Stoic principles that will rewire the way you think. Principles that have helped emperors, philosophers, and warriors master themselves in the face of chaos. You'll learn how to separate what you feel from how you act, how to turn hardship into fuel, how to stay calm when the world tries to pull you apart, and most importantly, how to think with clarity in a world built to confuse you. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, emotionally hijacked, or just tired of being at war with your own mind, this video is for you. So take a deep breath and hit like and subscribe if you're ready to take back control of your thoughts, your energy, and your life. Let's begin.
Number 1.
Control versus no control. At the core of Stoic thinking is a radical but liberating idea. You only need to focus on what you can control and let go of everything else. Epictetus said it best. Some things are up to us and some are not. Those 10 words hold the key to emotional freedom. Yet most people live in the exact opposite way. They exhaust themselves trying to change other people, trying to control outcomes, trying to predict life like it's a math problem. And in doing so, they invite suffering. They mistake worry for P. So what then is actually within your control? Your thoughts, your choices, your actions? That's it. You cannot force someone to respect you. You cannot stop misfortune from striking. You cannot speed up time or rewind it. But you can train your mind to interpret events wisely. You can decide how to respond with patience, with integrity, with discipline. And that simple shift from external obsession to internal ownership is where your freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. As Emperor of Rome, he had every excuse to point fingers, political betrayal, plagues, rebellions. But in his private writings, he didn't dwell on what others did. Instead, he focused on what he could do, how he could lead with virtue, remain calm under pressure, and protect his peace without becoming indifferent. You have power over your mind, he wrote, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This wasn't philosophy on a sheet. Now imagine applying this today. You're stuck in traffic. You're dealing with someone passive-aggressive. You're facing a deadline and everything is falling apart. Your instinct might be to react, to rant, to spiral. But the Stoic pauses. The Stoic asks, is this in my control? If it is, take action with clarity. If it isn't, let it go with grace. This is not passivity, this is power. It's the decision to stop wasting energy on what you wish was different and start focusing on what you can actually as. And here's the deeper truth. When you stop trying to control everything, you actually gain more influence. Why? Because people trust calm minds. People are drawn to those who don't overreact, who don't blame, who don't cling. Your clarity becomes magnetic. Your peace becomes your persuasion. It becomes something others feel and respect, even if they don't understand it. So the next time you feel powerless, ask yourself, what can I control right now? It might be your breath, your tone, your next step. Start there, because that's where your real strength lives, not in changing the world, but in mastering your response to it. That's the first mental shift of a Stoic. Stop fighting for control over the world and start mastering your response to it. Because real power isn't the ability to force outcomes. It's the ability to remain unmoved when they don't go your way.
Number 2.
Morning self-examination. Each dawn hands you a blank page. Most people sleepwalk across it, letting old fears dictate today's sentences. The Stoic greets it differently. Before the emails, before the headlines, before the world tries to rent space in your skull, you pause and interrogate your own mind. Marcus Aurelius began his days by reminding himself, "You will meet interference, ingratitude, arrogance." He wasn't pessimistic. He was preparing his defenses. By rehearsing potential obstacles, he disarmed their power. The way a seasoned sailor studies the sky before raising a single sail, this practice is simple yet revolutionary. As the light slips through the curtains, you ask 3 questions. First, what emotions am I likely to face? Second, which of them are useful? Third, how will I respond when they appear? Notice the order. You do not wait for events to control you. You choose your stance in advance. That is the difference between reacting like a puppet and acting like an architect. Consider professional tennis champion Serena Williams. Before every match, she visualizes not just winning rallies but double faults, crowd noise, even a broken shoelace. Because she rehearses adversity, nothing feels unexpected when it arrives. Her calm under pressure isn't luck. It is morning self-examination in motion, Stoicism translated onto a hard court. Tech leader Tim Cook does something similar. He rises around 4 a.m., reads the day's challenges from overnight reports, then goes to the gym. By processing potential fires while most people sleep, he shows up at Apple's campus centered, not scattered. His pre-dawn audit turns possible chaos into planned priorities. That quiet hour is worth more than 10 frantic ones later. Yet this ritual isn't reserved for athletes, emperors, or CEOs. It belongs to anyone with a sunrise and a heartbeat. You can practice it on the train, in the shower, or sitting quietly with coffee. The point is consistency, as Seneca advised. Fortune strikes hurt less when the mind has rehearsed the blow. Therefore, give your imagination permission to walk the battlefield of the day, only long enough to choose your posture, then return to peace. Importantly, morning self-examination is not catastrophic thinking. You are not indulging dread. You are vaccinating against it. By naming possible frustrations, traffic, rejection, sudden change, you shrink them to size. You remind yourself that their sting depends on your interpretation, not their existence. This distinction preserves optimism while sharpening readiness. Finally, seal the ritual with intention. State one virtue you will embody, no matter what. Patience in a meeting, courage in a difficult conversation, humility when praised. Write it down or whisper it. This single commitment acts like a compass when the day's weather turns. Practice this tomorrow and the day after. Over time, you'll notice fewer surprises, less emotional whiplash, more deliberate action, because the person who previews the day owns the day. And ownership, as every Stoic knows, is the birthplace of unshakable peace.
Number 3.
Amor Fati, love of fate. To the modern mind, loving fate sounds like surrender. But to the Stoic, it's the highest form of strength. Amor Fati doesn't mean tolerating whatever happens with blind passivity. It means welcoming every experience, not because it's easy, but because it serves a higher purpose, the cultivation of your character. The Stoic believes that the world doesn't happen to you. It happens for you, if you're wise enough to use it. Friedrich Nietzsche, though not a Stoic by tradition, captured the heart of this principle when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different." Why? Because resistance to life creates bitterness, but reverence for life, even its struggles, creates transformation. The person who learns to say, yes, even this, becomes immune to disappointment, because nothing is wasted, not loss, not failure, not even heartbreak. Marcus Aurelius understood this at the deepest level. He reminded himself daily to meet each trial not with complaint, but with gratitude. If it happened, it was meant for training. If it caused pain, it was an invitation to endure. If it disrupted his plan, it was life correcting his course. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's not poetry, that's armor for the soul. You see this principle reflected in great lives. Take Oprah Winfrey. Early in her career, she was fired from a news job and told she was unfit for television. Most would have crumbled. She didn't. She transformed rejection into redirection. She didn't just accept the setback. She leveraged it. That's Amor Fati, not passively receiving life, but consciously wielding it. Or consider Thomas Edison. When his laboratory went up in flames, destroying years of invention, he didn't despair. He simply said, "Thank God all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start again fresh." That's not denial. That's dominion over circumstance. That's the kind of mental clarity Amor Fati builds. And it applies to you too, when your plans fall apart, when someone lets you down, when things feel unfair. You can resist and suffer, or you can say, "This is part of it. This is my curriculum." Amor Fati doesn't demand you love the pain. It asks that you love what the pain can make of you. So the next time something doesn't go your way, pause, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What is this teaching me?" Say yes to it, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Because the moment you stop resisting life, life stops resisting you. This is Amor Fati, not a slogan, not blind optimism, but the soul's quiet rebellion to turn every fire into light and every wound into wisdom.
Number 4.
Separate emotions and actions. Emotions are weather. Actions are climate. A passing thunderstorm can drench the ground, but only if you mistake it for the entire season will you abandon your crops. The Stoics never denied feeling. They denied being ruled by feeling. Epictetus compared the human mind to a ship. Winds of anger, fear, or excitement may blow, yet the captain must keep the tiller steady. To steer well, you must notice the gust without surrendering the helm. Modern neuroscience now confirms what the ancients sensed. The limbic system fires first. The prefrontal cortex responds seconds later. Those few seconds are your kingdom. If you rush to act while your physiology still quivers, you outsource your destiny to chemistry. So the Stoic inserts a sacred pause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is its own master. Disturbance comes from within." He practiced labeling each emotion. Here is irritation, here is sorrow, as though cataloging strangers at the gate. Only when each feeling had been properly named and examined could he decide whether it deserved his response. We see this discipline in public figures who operate under relentless scrutiny. Think of basketball legend Michael Jordan during the 1997 NBA Finals, famously playing through illness. He felt weakness, dizziness, frustration, yet his decisions on the court were surgical, not emotional. Notice also Michelle Obama on the 2008 campaign trail. Confronted by harsh criticism, she acknowledged her hurt privately, then spoke publicly with poise and purposeful restraint. Their calm wasn't genetic fortune. It was the result of deliberate mental conditioning. Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl echoed this Stoic insight in his seminal work. Man's search for meaning, he observed that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. Though stripped of every external liberty, he discovered an interior frontier no guard could breach. By choosing his stance toward suffering, he preserved his humanity and later guided millions toward theirs. How do you practice this in everyday life? Begin with micro moments. A colleague cuts you off mid-sentence. Notice the spike of heat in your chest. Breathe, count to 5. Ask, what would my wiser self do next? That single breath recruits the rational brain, turning impulse into intention. Seneca advised keeping a nightly journal, reviewing where emotions steered behavior off course and where reason prevailed. Over time, the review becomes rehearsal. Tomorrow's choices improve. Importantly, separating emotion from action does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression is pressure without release, and pressure seeks cracks. Instead, observe emotion as data, signals about values, boundaries, desires. Use the information. Discard the frenzy, like a seasoned surfer. Ride the wave without letting it drag you under. The payoff is profound. When actions arise from principle, not passion, you become trustworthy to others and unshakable to yourself. Your reputation grows, not as someone who never feels, but as someone who never lets feelings decide alone. And in a world that rewards knee-jerk outrage, your calm will be conspicuous power.
Number 5.
Practice silence. In a world that screams, silence is rebellion. Not the silence of fear or avoidance, but the silence of mastery. The Stoics didn't speak less because they had nothing to say. They spoke less because they knew words are powerful tools, not toys, Epictetus warned. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. That's not just etiquette. That's restraint rooted in clarity, because once a word is spoken, it owns you. It can't be retrieved. And often it wasn't worth saying in tea. Today, most people speak to escape discomfort. They interrupt to feel control. They overshare to feel connection. They argue to feel significance. But the Stoic doesn't fear silence. The Stoic embraces it like a trusted companion, because silence creates space. Space to observe, space to think, space to remain free from unnecessary entanglements. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by flattery and manipulation, practiced the art of inner stillness. The best revenge, he said, is not to be like your enemy. That principle applies not only to action, but to speech. When insulted, don't echo the insult. When baited, don't bite. When provoked, don't perform. To hold your words when the world demands a reaction, that's not weakness, that's strategy. We see this power in modern leaders who command attention without noise. Think of Warren Buffett. He pauses often during interviews, allowing thoughts to ripen before he replies. His silence is not emptiness, it's calculation. It signals that he doesn't need to speak to fill space. Or take Maya Angelou. Every word she spoke carried the weight of reflection. Her silence between sentences made her truths feel sacred. The world leaned in because she didn't push out. To practice silence isn't to repress, it's to refine. It's the act of sharpening your internal filter. Before you speak, ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it mine to say? If not, let it pass like a cloud. Seneca once said, speech is the mirror of the mind. And what does reactive, careless speech reflect? Inner chaos, but a well-timed silence? That reflects sovereignty, and sovereignty is magnetic. Try it today. When you're irritated, say nothing. When someone expects a quick reply, breathe instead. When you're unsure, observe more. Over time, your silence will start to speak louder than others shouting, and people will come to respect your quiet, not as absence, but as presence. Because silence is not the lack of response, it is the most powerful response. A shield, a signal, a strategy. The Stoics didn't speak less to disappear, they spoke less to be heard. So speak only when it improves the silence. Until then, hold your tongue, hold your center, hold your power. Number 6. Accept uncertainty. The human mind craves certainty. It wants to know what's next, how things will turn out, whether we'll be safe, loved, and successful. But life doesn't make promises, it offers possibilities. And the more you try to demand certainty from an uncertain world, the more you suffer. The Stoics knew this. They understood that the key to peace wasn't in controlling the future. It was in becoming flexible enough to flow with it. Seneca once said, "A great part of the suffering is in our own imagination." Not in reality, in imagination, in the stories we tell ourselves about what might go wrong, what could fall apart. But these stories only rob us of the present moment. They don't protect us. They paralyze us, so the Stoic learns to stop rehearsing catastrophe and start practicing presence. The Stoic says, "I don't need to know how the story ends. I just need to live this page well." Let's take an example from someone not born into philosophy, but who lived its truth. Steve Jobs. When he was diagnosed with cancer, he didn't pretend everything was fine, but he also didn't collapse into fear. Instead, he said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." That's not morbid, it's liberating. It's the realization that uncertainty is a given, so you might as well align your actions with what truly matters now. Uncertainty isn't the enemy. Clinging is. You can have goals. You can plan. But the Stoic keeps a loose grip. They hold intention in one hand and flexibility in the other. That's how they stay calm when the plan changes. Because the plan was never their identity, character was, and character doesn't depend on knowing what happens next. It depends on how you carry yourself in the not knowing. You can see this mindset in someone like actor Keanu Reeves. Despite personal tragedies and unpredictable career highs and lows, he's known for his steady, almost meditative presence. He doesn't rush to control public opinion. He doesn't chase outcomes. He simply shows up, does the work, and lets the rest unfold. That's what accepting uncertainty looks like. Not detachment, but alignment with the flow of reality. Try this. Next time you catch yourself spiraling about the future, pause, ask, what part of this is mine to control? If it's an action, do it. If it's not, let it float. Return to the present, your breath, your effort, your values. Because no matter how chaotic the future feels, those anchors remain. The Stoic doesn't resist the unknown. He trains for it. He expects the unexpected. Not to be cynical, but to stay awake. Because when you stop needing guarantees, you start moving with freedom, and that freedom is the birthplace of peace. Not because life becomes certain, but because you do. Number 7, internal versus external goals. Modern life tells you to chase the visible, the applause, the income, the metrics, the trophy. But the Stoic knows that external achievements are borrowed. They depend on timing, circumstance, and other people's choices. They are fragile, temporary, conditional. What's internal, though, your effort, your clarity, your integrity, that is yours forever. So the Stoic flips the pursuit. They don't abandon success, but they redefine it. Success becomes, did I show up today with virtue? Did I choose the hard rig? Epictetus taught this with clarity. We should not mold our thoughts to fit the events, he said, but mold the events to fit our thoughts. In other words, your peace should not be held hostage by outcomes. A Stoic doesn't obsess over whether they win. They ask, did I show up fully? Did I act with wisdom? Because if your happiness always lives in a result outside of you, then you'll always be reaching, never arriving. You become a slave to the scoreboard instead of a student of the process. Take the story of Simone Biles. At the height of the Olympics, she made a decision that shocked the world. She stepped away, not because she couldn't perform, but because her internal world needed attention. The crowd didn't understand, but the Stoic would. Her goal was no longer about gold. It was about wholeness. That's Stoicism in action, valuing your soul more than your scorecard. Or consider Abraham Lincoln. Through criticism, slander, and national crisis, he refused to chase popularity. He chose what was principled, not what was praised, and even when the external results were uncertain, his internal compass remained fixed. That's the Stoic gold medal, living in alignment, even when no one claps. And ironically, the less he chased applause, the more deeply history came to respect him. So what does this look like in your life? If you're writing, the real win isn't bestseller status. It's the courage to keep writing in silence. If you're building a business, the win isn't just revenue, it's the discipline to lead ethically when no one's watching. You stop asking, did I get what I wanted? And start asking, did I give what I had? You shift your focus from results to rhythm, from validation to values. And this matters deeply because most people burn out chasing things they were never meant to control. But the Stoic burns brighter by focusing on what no one can take away. Consistency, courage, clarity. When you build a life centered on internal goals, you're no longer at the mercy of likes, titles, or trends. You become unshakable, not because everything works out, but because your worth was never tied to that in the first place. It was rooted in who you chose to be, again and again, even when no one was watching. Number 8, community over individual. To the modern ear, Stoicism can sound solitary, a philosophy of inward reflection, personal discipline, and silent strength. But this is a misunderstanding. The Stoic doesn't withdraw from others. They rise for others. At its core, Stoicism is a philosophy of service. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. In other words, your peace, your growth, your clarity, these are not just for you, they are meant to ripple outward. The Stoics understood that the individual and the community are not in conflict. They are intertwined. You sharpen your mind not to dominate others, but to guide gently. You master your emotions not to become cold, but so you don't wound others with reactive fire. You cultivate silence so you can listen more deeply. Not escape into detachment, but show up with presence. Wisdom is not selfish. It is sacred fuel for contribution. Consider Fred Rogers, known to generations as Mr. Rogers. He didn't preach Stoicism, but he lived it. His life was marked by quiet discipline, compassionate attention, and an unwavering commitment to the emotional well-being of others. He believed every person had value, and he mirrored that belief in every interaction. His inner stability became a sanctuary for others. That's Stoicism in service of community. Or look at Maya Angelou. Her poetry, her presence, her public speeches, all grounded in a deep sense of collective uplift. She wasn't just seeking personal healing. She wanted to heal the world through truth, rhythm, and grace. Her strength wasn't selfish. It was shared. And that's the Stoic ideal. Becoming strong, not to separate yourself, but to serve without collapsing. She turned personal clarity into cultural impact. Because true strength is not isolation. It's contribution. You don't become wise to sit above the crowd. You become wise to serve the crowd with patience, with clarity, with grounded presence. The Stoic doesn't see the world as me versus them. They see it as me with them. Even when others are chaotic, unfair, or confused, the Stoic remains steady, not to prove superiority, but to offer stability. In your own life, this means pausing to ask, how can I make today lighter for someone else? Can I hold space without judgment? Can I stay calm so others can feel safe? These are not small acts, they are ripples. And over time, ripples become waves. Stoic service is not grand. It is consistent. The Stoic path is not just about personal resilience. It's about collective elevation. Because when you bring your highest self into the room, you invite others to meet you there. And that perhaps is the most noble use of all this inner work. Not just to survive, but to make your strength a safe place for others to rest. Number 9, voluntary discomfort. The modern world is built for comfort, We avoid heat, cold, hunger, silence, even boredom. We chase ease in everything. Delivery at the tap of a finger, dopamine at the swipe of a screen. But the Stoics believe that comfort, when constant, becomes a trap. It softens the mind. It weakens resolve. And over time, it makes you fragile in the face of inevitable adversity. So they practice the opposite. Voluntary discomfort, not to punish themselves, but to strengthen their spirit before the storm arrived. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" The point wasn't asceticism, it was training, conditioning the soul to face what others dread, and to find in that simplicity a surprising kind of freedom. When you rehearse discomfort, you shrink the power of fear itself. Consider someone like David Goggins, a former Navy SEAL turned endurance athlete. He voluntarily puts himself through grueling physical and mental challenges, not for the spotlight, but for the edge it gives him over his weaker self. Every ice bath, every long-distance run, every early wake-up is a reminder, I control my body, not the other way around. That discipline of discomfort becomes his shield against chaos, and it's not about suffering, it's about self-command. Or take the lifestyle of Jack Dorsey, known for walking to work, intermittent fasting, cold plunges, and long digital detoxes. His philosophy isn't about self-denial, but mental clarity. In a world flooded with stimulation, his voluntary limits act like anchors. By removing excess, he reveals what truly matters. Discomfort becomes a path, not away from life, but deeper into it. Voluntary discomfort rewires your relationship with pain. You stop fearing it, you stop avoiding it. You meet it on your own terms, and in doing so, you expand your threshold. What used to break you now becomes background noise. What used to feel unbearable becomes familiar, even empowering. You stop bracing for impact, you start preparing for it. How do you begin? Start small, skip a meal. Not because you have to, but to remember you can. Sleep on the floor, take a cold shower, walk instead of drive, or simply sit in silence for 10 minutes with no phone, no music, no escape. These acts are small, but their effects are profound. They remind you that your strength doesn't come from comfort, it comes from capability, and capability is earned in the quiet friction of chosen difficulty. The Stoic trains for difficulty so that difficulty loses its sting. You don't wait for life to test you, you test yourself. And by doing so, you become the kind of person who stays calm in chaos, not because life is easy, but because you've already met the edge and made peace with it. Number 10, continuous self-reflection. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to expose their flaws. They reveal them to themselves daily. Self-reflection isn't occasional, it's continuous. And it's not for self-loathing, it's for self-liberation. At the end of each day, the Stoic asks, where did I fall short? Where did I overreact? Where was I unclear, impatient, or misaligned with my values? Not to shame, but to sharpen, because you cannot master what you refuse to examine. Seneca advised this practice every evening. Before sleep, he would review his words, his tone, his choices. He'd walk back through the day with honesty, not judgment. It wasn't about perfection. It was about pattern recognition. As he put it, when the light has been removed, examine your entire day. This nightly audit wasn't a burden, it was a gift. Because when you reflect consistently, you catch the small errors before they become big regrets. You see the same principle in people who've built lives of quiet excellence. Take Ray Dalio, the billionaire investor and author of Principles. His entire philosophy is built on radical truth and radical transparency. With others, yes. But first with himself, he records mistakes, reflects on decisions, and build systems to correct them. It's not about ego. It's about evolution. That's what Stoics aim for. Progress over image. Or consider the late Maya Angelou. She spoke often of the importance of self-examination. She believed that courage and clarity came from sitting with your past, your actions, your contradictions. Her life was a continual practice of asking, who am I becoming? Not once a year, not in crisis, but as a daily discipline. That's Stoicism. Not becoming hardened, but becoming honest. The power of this practice is cumulative. A single moment of reflection may feel small, but over time it rewires your choices. You start noticing your triggers. You slow your reactions. You make space between emotion and behavior. And slowly, your life becomes less reactive, more intentional. That's not magic. It's the result of looking inward long enough to stop being a stranger to yourself. If you want to start this, don't wait for the perfect moment. Begin tonight. Ask yourself 3 questions before bed. What did I do well today? Where did I drift from who I want to be? And how will I correct that tomorrow? You don't need an app. You need awareness. Because self-reflection isn't about being flawless. It's about being awake. The Stoic doesn't fear the mirror. They rely on it because the more clearly you can see yourself, the more powerfully you can shape yourself. And that is the quiet path to mastery. Not in controlling the world, but in continuously refining the only thing you ever truly own, your character. The Stoic path isn't about appearing strong. It's about becoming strong from the inside out, through discipline, clarity, and deep self-honesty. You stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. These 10 principles aren't just ideas. They're practices, daily tools for staying grounded in chaos, calm under pressure, and clear when others are lost. So choose one. Begin there. Let it shape how you move, how you speak, how you show up. And if this video helped bring you closer to that inner strength, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Stay steady, stay sharp,